Welcome back to the Naked Proverbs podcast, where we unclothe the truth about Black love, family, and marriage. My name is Nik Scott, one of your hosts, and I'm here with my husband.
What's going on? It's your boy Rich, and today we are going to talk about generational curses.
Right at the start of every episode, we always remind our listeners that we are not trained, licensed, or professional therapists or counselors. We've been married for nearly 2 decades, and Naked Proverbs is our platform to share our stories, our experience, our advice, and our opinions. If you haven't already, make sure that you're following the Naked Proverbs on whatever podcasting platform you're listening on. And if you like what you hear, show us your love and support by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes.
Let's take a moment and say thank you. We appreciate all our listeners that tune in week after week and that provide feedback and are just a part of this journey with us. We really appreciate you taking out time in your day to spend with us. Thank you. A lot of stuff has happened over the last week, and I think the greatest thing that happened this past week was those amazing debates by our president and vice president wannabe, or I don't even know what they...
He is the vice president. He's
Okay.
once a vice president, always a vice president.
Okay. Well, I think those debates were something.
They were like, I can't remember which correspondent on NBC said, a hot mess.
They really were. And then we also had the president and his wife possibly exposed to COVID. You know,
No, I thought they were tested positive for COVID.
okay, well, they tested positive for COVID. I don't know. I can't remember, to be honest, because he doesn't believe in COVID. So how can you get something that you don't believe in?
There's a lot of people that don't believe in a lot of things, and it still happens to them.
Oh, well, what else happened this week?
Can we talk about the debates a little bit more?
I try to just brush over it because, you know, this is a non-political podcast. And I mean, unless we're just going to talk about how crappy both of them were.
Yes.
Because I was just like, this is America. Like, I think that was my whole take on it, was kind of like, people around the world are literally watching our debates. They're watching because our political life in America, I don't even know what you call it, but the things that are happening in the political world here in America impact the world. So people all over really do watch to see what's going on. And I can only imagine what somebody in some foreign country was thinking as they watched our current president and our past vice president debate, if you want to call it that.
Well, if you remember when we were in Jamaica at the beginning of the year and we were taking a cab to the facility,
Mm-hmm.
and the cab driver, that is all he wanted to talk about.
Yes. And I didn't even know what he was talking about.
I didn't know what he was talking about
Because he was talking about, I feel like it was a senator or something, like a state representative. It was something not like big in America to us, but it was like the representative for Jamaica or something. I mean, it was something big.
Yep.
And then I remember Coach asked him about the president in Jamaica or something.
Oh, that's right.
Because Coach, you know, Coach is cool. I love Coach. But he was kind of like, look, you harping on us about our politics. Do you know about your own? And he really didn't know his own politics. Like, he couldn't even name his president, I think, or something simple like that. But he knew what was going on in America.
And was telling us about it. And that's why this was at the beginning of the year, wasn't it?
Yes, it was in January. Yeah.
February.
I mean, it's been so long ago. I mean, we've had 17,000 months of COVID.
We haven't left the state since then.
Yes, we have.
Oh, yeah. We went to Kansas.
And we dropped off our kid in college.
Oh, we did. We went to Louisiana. Okay. So can we just scratch that from the record?
Girl, you sleep through all of it?
You know, this year has just been so crazy. And I know we've said that probably every episode since we've been back on.
But I just think it's been a unique year. It's been interesting.
It's been a good year, you know. Yeah. So one of my sorority sisters from my chapter, Zeta Nu, hey y'all, she posted on her Instagram, she's something about it being such a crazy year and for us to be challenged to name one positive thing that has happened in our life in her comment section. And so my response to her was basically like, this year's been crazy, but it has been really good for me and my family.
Yes.
And it's not to say that we haven't had some really devastating things happen this year.
But you know what I think? it's always like you tell me and the girls, change your focus, change your mindset, right? And I think that's a great, segue into what we're about to talk about. But when you choose to just focus on all the negative that has happened this year, then you really will just go right on over all the positive. And I think that that's not just unique to COVID year 2020, but it's our lives, period. So often people can be so fixated on the negative that they fail to see all the positive that is happening in their lives.
Well, let's be clear. A lot of the positive that we're talking about, some people might think that it's like really major things, right? And some of it is really major, some of the things that have happened.
Yeah.
But some of it can be quickly overlooked if you're not looking for the positive. For example, our youngest daughter received a certificate at the end of last semester for having a GPA of 3.5 or higher. And that's a small thing, right? And we could have just been like, whatever, it is what it is. But that happened this year.
Right.
That didn't happen last year. Mm-hmm. It didn't happen the year before. That happened this year. So that's one of the things that I'm, when I'm reflecting on 2020, that I'm saying so many positive things have happened in our lives.
Our topic for today is generational curses. And I think that this little piece that we're talking about really relates to that, because you can not even realize the negative things that are going on in your life as a generational curse, because it's just like, well, bad stuff always happens. Or, that's just how our family is. Or, well, we've always been that way. But if you really stop and evaluate and look at the things that are happening in your life, that are happening in other people, family members' lives, then you might actually identify that there's something there. There's more to it than just, well, that's how it's always been.
The first thing that I want to do to set the foundation for this conversation is, can we please stop calling them curses?
Well, why?
Well, because they're really choices. A lot of times these are choices. When we talk about some of the things that we would consider generational curses, and I can give some examples in my family, I would say that divorce is a generational curse in my family. That's not really a curse. That's a choice. Like, how is it a curse?
Well, I think that people use the word curse, generational curse, because technically in the Bible, it does talk about quote unquote generational curses, right? And it talks about things being passed down from one generation to the next and the impact that can have on the family as a unit. And so I think that there are people, whether they're biblical or not, have grabbed that piece and it's kind of stuck over the years. But I would agree that some of the things that are happening in people's lives have more to do with choices than it does with anything else. But I would also say that if you only see one option, or you only have been raised to believe there's only one option, then you are going to make your decisions and make your choices based off of there's only one option. And so while that may seem like it's a choice, there's some things that it can be so ingrained in a person or in a family unit that it really is a curse. Like, it's something that needs to be broken. It's not just you're making bad choices, but there's like generations of, because I even think of, there are families where they can say, well, my mom had me at 18. I had my first child at 18. My grandma had my mom at 18. And I'm not saying me specifically. I'm just saying, like, there are people that can talk about generations of children having children. And is that a bad choice? Yes. But I think that there's more to it than just a choice.
I'm going to push back because I feel like it is. That's not what this podcast is about today.
Why are you squirming?
Because you be getting me all.
Well, what are we talking about? Generational curses,
tingly,
right? Stay focused.
Well, you're the one that got me off topic.
No, you the one talking about pushing back.
I said, I did say that.
You did, right?
But you didn't have to reply the way that you did, is my point. So I am going to push back on the word choice, because I do feel like we should use the word choice instead of curse, because when you look at the definition of curse, it is a solemn utterance intended to invoke a supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something. Okay. And what we're talking about, some of the things that we've already described, divorce and kids having kids, I don't know if those are necessarily curses, but at the same time, I don't want to minimize the psychology that comes into effect when we're talking about you do exactly what you see your parents do and what you hear your parents doing and how apples don't fall far from trees. So I don't want to minimize that, but I just really hesitate as we were preparing for this episode. I'm thinking like, these are not curses. These are choices. These are choices on parents to behave in the way that they behave. And then as children become adults, again, I don't want to minimize the effects of this is the only thing that I've seen or heard my whole life and how hard it is to go against it, but it's not a curse. It's still a choice.
Well, okay. What about something like depression then? You know, I think that there are families out there where depression is, it seems, passed down through the genes almost, right?
It is, but depression is passed down. That is DNA.
Well, but is it? Because if it's all DNA, then everybody in that family would have depression, but
Not
everybody
true.
doesn't, right?
That's not
so
true.
Again, I just question some of it as, you know, choices, as we're saying. And like I said, I mean, choice, curse, call it what you want. At the end of the day, there are things that people are carrying from generation to generation that doesn't have to be carried, that can be changed. But it requires you first identifying that there's even something there, you know, because if you're like, well, my mama was an alcoholic and my daddy was an alcoholic and I'm an alcoholic because it's in my genes, it's in my DNA. Like, I can't help it. Like, you know, I have an addictive personality or behavior.
Proof to that.
But I would still say that those are things that can be broken, though, right?
I agree.
Because I know people that have had addictions and addictive behaviors that have changed their lives. I know people that have come from backgrounds of addiction and never have been addicted.
Me.
So, right. So to me, I think that it's a slippery slope when we just call it choices, because then I don't think it carries the same weight for someone, right? They hear it and they're like, well, it's my choices, instead of realizing that, yes, it's your choices, but there is more to it than just you making a bad choice at some point in your life.
The word curse puts it off on somebody else to me. It puts the ownership and the responsibility and the accountability. Well, I'm this way because of a curse, because of a utterance from somebody generation past that I'm in this negative situation, right? I feel like the word choice, like it is your choice, actually puts the responsibility and the ownership on you. So I feel like curse is harsh. You know, it's like when you hear curse, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be cursed. But if you're saying, well, you're not cursed, it's because of your choice, I feel like that carries a lot more power and forces that person to stop and think like, okay, so if divorce is a choice that people in my family have made for generations, do I have to make that same choice? Because if it's a curse, then that means there is no option. It's like we're under the spell of this curse.
I guess for me, I look at it like this, and you know, we're past, I think, is it a curse or not?
Or a
right?
choice, right?
But what I'm saying is that I think if in your family, since we've you know brought that out, right, divorce seems to be pretty normal, and you go to your mom for advice as you're having struggles in your marriage, and then your mom is like, well, I wouldn't put up with that, and I wouldn't have no broke nigga, or I wouldn't have nobody that cheated on me, or I wouldn't, then to me that starts to steer your choice, because your mom is planting her own seeds into your mind and into your heart based off her experiences or based off her choices, based off her quote unquote curse, right? And now it's starting to have that next generational impact that I think when people talk about generational curses start to have, because depending on how you react or receive what she's telling you, you could be the next generation to be in a divorce.
Or a single mother. I love that you bring up moms, because I have been on this thought process for a while that moms really can make or break their children. even more so than dads. Like the influence that we have on our kids a lot of times is so powerful. And no one would ever think, if you have a great relationship with your mom, you would never think that your mom is ever going to tell you something that's ultimately going to detriment you or to hurt you. So if a woman or a man is contemplating divorce because, you know, they ain't gonna put up with that broke nigga, she don't cook the way that I want her to cook, or whatever the thing is, and they take it to their mom, and their mom is like, well, I wouldn't put up with that either because I was married to your daddy and I cooked and I did whatever. And so, though you're right, I think what the mom says has a huge impact. But if we're truly trying to break the curse or choose a different path for our legacy and our family and our lineage, sometimes we have to go against what mama says, because mama knows a lot and mama has had a lot of life experience, and sometimes it carries some weight. And I'm not talking to my own children right now, so if y'all listening, y'all do exactly what I'm telling you to do. Okay. But we have to take everything into consideration, right? What are the effects of choices? We talk about choices a lot in our family.
Definitely. And I think, you know, kind of sticking with the same, you know, curse that we've chosen, or this choice that we've chosen. You know, if you have a male, let's use a man because we always talk about the woman, but it happens with men too. You have a father that feels like he was jaded by your mom, and he tells you, well, there ain't no good women out there. And that's what you're being taught from day one of your relationship with him, you know, is that there are no good women out there. And he's a womanizer, and he just treats women like they are not God's gift, which they are. He treats them like, you know, they're just whatever. Well, that's going to have an impact and an imprint on anyone. And, you know, young men, whether they recognize it or not, they want the approval of their fathers. They want, you know, to emulate their fathers in so many different areas of their lives, you know, because it's like, wow, this is the first man that I know that walks on water, you know. And so to me, it's like, if that same man is teaching you all these negative things, then when it does come time for you to make choices, your choices have already been influenced, whether you realize it or not. And I think that's kind of what I'm saying from the whole just generational curse piece is, you may not even realize it's happening. Mm-hmm. You may not even realize that your heart is being hardened, or that you are feeling some kind of way. So then when you end up in a marriage and the first time she doesn't do exactly what you think she should do,
or he loses his job,
right, then you're like, oh, well, daddy said, you know, move on. Mm-hmm. Mama said, don't have no broke dude. And next thing you know, you've restarted that cycle again. Mm-hmm. Because now, let's say that you had children together. Yep. Now, what does that child see? That child sees the exact same thing. This jaded parent, man or woman, that is filling their mind with that same hatred, frustration, and anger that caused you to be in the situation you're in. Because maybe whatever that situation was with your spouse or with that person you were with could have been resolved. Or it could have been something that you went to counseling for, or it could have been something that, you know, you guys were able to work through. But because you had someone that was in your ear, it's almost, I always think of, you know, the little devil where they have the good angel and the little devil on your ear. It's that same situation. And honestly, your parent may not have even tried to, that may not have been their goal.
Did you say good devil?
Good angel.
Oh.
And a bad devil.
Oh, bad devil and a good angel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I might have said good devil. I don't know. But I guess I just look at it and I say, you know, that parent may not think that they're giving you bad advice. They may not think that they are steering you down this same path they ended up on. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to look out for what they believe is your best interest. But the truth is, they're actually recreating their exact same situation they lived through.
Based off of their own experience. I think as parents, especially when it comes to talking about a topic like this, is our experience is our experience, and our children, they're our babies and we love them. But let's be clear, they are going to experience things that we have never experienced before. There are going to be times, just because we've been married and they're married, doesn't mean that we know everything about what's going on in their marriage. Even if we talk to them every single day, we don't know. We could live in the same house with them and still not know everything that's going on and what they're going through and how they feel in conversations that are being had. So parents, yes, you're right. We might not know that we're steering our kids down a path of generational cursedness, but we also, as the child, the person who feels like they might be charged with breaking the generational curse of single motherhood in their family. Well, let's be clear. If you're married and you get a divorce, you are going to be, and you have kids, you're going to be a single mom.
Right.
And if you want to break that curse, then you have to, okay, take into consideration what your mom and them are saying, but also you have to do what's best for you, your family, and your legacy.
Right.
Because that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what your mama has to say. It doesn't matter what your daddy has to say or your sister or whoever else it is, because it is not their unit. It's not their unit. So then I guess my question is, how do you break generational curses?
Well, I mean, I think first you have to realize that just about anything can be a generational curse. You know, we've talked about divorce. We've talked about single parenting, but it could be health. It could be wealth. I mean, there are so many things that if you really stop and look at the patterns in your family, you might identify as, whoa, I never thought of that as a generational curse, right? And what do I mean by health? Well, you always hear, I know I always hear, well, diabetes must just run in our family. It's probably got nothing to do with everybody being overweight. Probably has nothing to do with everybody eating fried foods. Probably has nothing to do with nobody working out and exercising. It has nothing to do with that. We just all have high cholesterol and diabetes. And I think that that's what my point is that sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves and realize that our choices are the reasons for these curses. Like, well, my great-great-grandmother fried everything in lard, and she passed down these amazing recipes down to my grandmother, down to my mother, and down to me. Well, at some point, you have to realize that you have to change if you want change. If you're good with everybody dying of heart attacks in their 50s, then so be it. Then, hey, go for it. You live your life until you're 55, if that's your goal, right? But if your goal is to change that so that you are teaching some healthier habits to the next generation, it starts with you. And I think that's, so when you say, how do you break these cycles? I would say the first thing is you have to be honest with yourself and identify that they exist.
I love being honest with yourself and identifying that they exist. However, I do believe that when it comes to self-accountability and especially self-correction, people are very hesitant and aversive to calling out their own faults. It's very hard. It takes a very big and mature person emotionally and psychologically to be like, I am wrong and I need to stop, for them to call their own selves out on that. It takes a very mature person emotionally and psychologically. So in addition to being able to self-correct, I think that it's important to have other people that you trust give feedback and provide feedback. And what I mean by that is sometimes when somebody sees something, right, who's not necessarily in your house or whatever, and they say something to you, you might call that person judgmental. You might say that that person is judging the behavior that you're doing or whatever it is that you're doing, when in fact, that could be a signal or an indication that, hey, this may be a generational curse or a generational choice that I might need to correct and take into consideration what that person is saying. I'm not saying everything everybody says, but sometimes you can't do it on your own.
And then I think that you have to be willing to paddle upstream, right? If you've ever paddled a boat, the easiest way to paddle your boat is with the current, right? Because, well, that's the way the current wants you to go. So it pushes you easily. It's very easy to do. There's not a lot of work to it. It's relaxing. You can fish while you're doing it, sing a song, make some Kool-Aid, whatever, right? But when you choose to paddle upstream, paddle against the current, it is not easy. Like your muscles are sore and your back hurts and the water's hitting the front of the boat and getting you all wet because you're not going the right direction.
Yeah.
And it's constantly pushing you back. If you stop paddling, you will go the wrong direction.
End up back where you started.
So to me, that is a huge part of this. And so it's not just identifying, it's not just having accountability partners and people that can hold you, accountable, but it's realizing that it's not going to be easy. And I think that you have to admit to that and recognize that early on, because the first time you try, and I'm gonna give us as an example, right? First time we went back home. First time we went back home to visit my parents, and we had stopped eating fried everything, right? Mm-hmm. Or we had stopped eating pork bacon at the time. I like pork bacon, y'all. I eat it anytime. But anyway, we had kind of reduced, I guess, some of those bad eating behaviors that we had learned over our lives. And we would go home, and my dad loves to cook breakfast for everybody. So he would cook all this breakfast, and then he'd make comments. And it wasn't out of hatred or, trying to prevent us from doing the right thing. But y'all sure you don't want none of this bacon? This bacon is good, y'all. And now, years later, my dad, if he knows we're coming, he's going to have some turkey bacon, or he's going to make something, some oatmeal or something that is a healthier choice for us. But that didn't come without some pushback, because we were changing something that literally was something our families had done for generations. Like, we eat, and it's not good. Like, we don't eat the healthiest.
No, it tastes delicious.
Oh, it's amazing. But it's definitely not what's best for the longevity of your body, right? And not saying that I'm this health freak, and
because you're not,
because I'm far from it. But I had to learn that if I wanted to have not just a long life, but have a long life that had meaning and opportunity, and I could really live my life, then I had to make some behavioral changes when it came to food.
And it has not been easy, y'all. This man over here, you want to talk about pushing back. I'd have been hollered at.
Girl, you had me drinking almond milk with cookies. Now I love my almond milk.
Y'all, any woman out there trying to help their husband break the generational choice of food and overconsumption and gluttony when it comes to food, understand that it is not going to be easy.
No.
Breaking generational curses is the epitome of getting out of your comfort zone. It's the epitome of being uncomfortable. And let me tell you, when we were making those choices, because it's almost 10 years now. Yeah. Almost 10 years ago now, when I made the choice. Because let's be clear, I'm talking about his family. My family, we like to eat too. We eat a little differently, but we like to eat too. And what you gonna talk about? Pomegranates?
I was thinking about that fried dressing dripped in butter.
Oh, my granny's dressing is so good.
But that stuff probably stop your heart each bite.
But it's so good. So when I made that choice, at first he did. He would go on food strikes. He wouldn't eat what I cooked.
I eat stuff from outside the house.
He would, and come home with a whole separate dinner and everything. And I'm like, I know this nigga did not just walk up in here after I done, there was a point where we were strictly vegan, not even vegetarian, because I wanted us to make I was not down for my husband being on blood pressure pills in his 30s or, on high cholesterol medication or whatever it is. I don't even know. I wasn't down with that. And it was my responsibility as his wife to help him through that, even though I had to take some jabs, not literal.
Hold on now. Yeah.
Not literal jabs, right. Figurative jabs. Cause we don't play that.
No, we don't play that. I ain't trying to get hit or arrested, being in prison.
I'll put you
divorced,
in jail.
None of that.
I'm gonna press charges on you and put you in jail. But it was not an easy thing for us to do. It wasn't easy for me, and it was frustrating, and I'm sure it was frustrating for him. But in order for us to make it on the other side where we are now, people see us now and they're like, well, how did you do that? Because he'll literally, whatever I make, he'll eat, whether or not there's meat. Whether or not, there's pork bacon.
Or I'll go out on my own. Like, I had a lunch meeting this week, and I ordered a salad.
Right. And you would not have, I'm telling y'all.
And there was nobody there to force me to do that. There was no reason outside of, well, that's really what I wanted.
That's a process, though.
Right. And I think that when we talk about generational curses, it's so easy to focus on the big stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, well, our family always has children at a young age. Mm-hmm. Or we have divorce or we have high blood pressure or whatever it is, right? But to me, it's understanding that sometimes it's those little choices. It's those little things, because we didn't just start off by not eating meat.
Right.
It was a slow process that took time, and we stumbled and we went back some, and then we moved forward again. So to me, again, when we start talking about breaking these curses,
whatever they are,
whatever it is in your life, right? Like I said, first identify, well, what are some patterns that are happening in my life, my siblings' lives, my parents' lives, my grandparents' lives, my great-grandparents' lives? Like, wait a minute, why is it that these things are all the same? Then once you identify that, then you really have to be committed to wanting to see something different. And you may not have the support of your family. You may not have the support of your siblings and your parents and your aunts and your uncles, or even your friends that you hang out with on a regular basis. It may really be just you and your spouse. And it might just be you as you try to help your spouse. Like my wife, it was really her, right? We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for her being willing to fight through the setbacks to help us change our choices.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Naked Proverbs. We truly want you to have a happy marriage. We want you to thrive in your marriages and indulge in your spouses on a regular basis. Don't forget to follow the Naked Proverbs on whatever podcasting platform you listen on. And we will talk to y'all in the next one.
Peace.